Welcome to my podcast, Today's Dream, Tomorrow's Reality. My name is Vickie Poole. I'm a master transformational coach and hypnotist specializing in habit change. And this podcast is sponsored by the Enlighten Peach. And it's all about embracing our mosaic life. And some of you may ask, what is a mosaic life anyway? Well, it is recognizing that all the pieces of our life, the good, the bad, the indifferent, have all come together to make us who we are. Change any one thing, and we are different. With that in mind, I invite you to embrace your perceived imperfections and celebrate who you are. This podcast is unedited and raw, just like life. And I am your host, and I have a special guest that I will introduce in just a moment. But before I do, I would love for you to do me a solid, and that is to leave a comment, ask a question, and like, subscribe, and share, because I have amazing guests on my podcast. They have amazing stories. And the only way that I can get it out to an even broader audience is with your help. So go ahead, leave a comment, ask a question, and I'm sure Gary would be more than happy to come back and look and answer your questions. I can answer questions as well. And remember, like, subscribe, and share. So now let's get started. So this wonderful gentleman here is Gary, and is it Menkes?
Yes, you pronounced it right. That's a
Oh, for the
word too.
first time, right?
Yeah, that's a
So I don't know much about you, but I just want to tell everybody, I'm so excited to have him as a guest on my podcast. And I will say that I do know a little bit, and I'll just share real quick. I know he lives in New York. I don't know where in New York, but he lives in New York. And the thing that I love about that, it's the same time zone. That's always exciting, right?
right. Yeah.
And then he has a sobriety story of being sober for 18 years. And I can't wait to dive in a little bit and find out about that. Married with 2 children, and was referred by someone else that I'd had on my podcast. And so I'm super excited to kind of open this up. And if you want, just take a moment to introduce yourself a little bit more than what I have, and then we'll just have a conversation and discover all we can about you.
Thank you for that introduction. Thanks for being here. Very grateful to be here. I am constantly amazed. I've been doing podcasts for almost a year now. I have my own podcast. It's called the Begin Again podcast, and it's about sober recovery stories and people transforming their lives. But when you described your podcast and the Enlightened Peach and a Mosaic Life, it really piqued my interest because I think that's a wonderful way. It reminded me of the movie. I think it's called The Butterfly Effect. And
Hmm.
the premise of the movie is, one small thing happens to you along the way, and it can completely alter the course of the path of your life. And
Yes.
it goes back and it sees like, look what happened to her here, and this is where she is now. And it switches back. What if this didn't happen? Look at where she'd be now. And the mosaic life, right? It's like it's who we are.
Yeah.
It's who what makes us who we are. It's our path, it's our journeys, and it's sort of our authentic selves. So I love the premise of your podcast. So
Ah, thank
and
you.
I know you asked me for an intro. You kind of nailed it. I'm a dad,
Okay.
father, happily married to the love of my life too. I have a 10-year-old that she's going to be 11 in about a week. I have a 9-year-old. And yeah, yesterday actually was a big milestone, a big anniversary. I celebrated 18 years just yesterday of sobriety.
Oh, just yesterday?
Yeah.
Well, congratulations. Oh, I'm so excited for you.
Thank
So
you.
are you a person that is in AA, or is this
Saving,
something that yes?
saved my life. I'm one of the ones. I'm a happy customer of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's funny. Well, I had a struggle. Well, I struggled kind of my whole life, but I went to a rehab in 2002, but my sobriety date's 2006, and I was in and out for four
Mm,
years, and it was kind of ugly. But I always had said within those 4 years, there's going to be probably a time, Gary, where you're gonna have to stop drinking, but never going back to those people in AA. And lo and behold, on May 12th, the night before my sobriety date, I found myself sitting in my apartment in West 12th Street in New York City, and I called New York City Intergroup, and I went to a meeting on May 13th, 2006. And yes, A, without a doubt, saved my life.
beautiful. I have an uncle who's since passed away, but he was in AA, and that completely turned his life around because, he was able to actually grow a business and become very, very wealthy after he was able to get his life in order. It was amazing, the things that will hold you back, right?
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
that's sort of how the premise of my podcast, podcasting was not on my radar at all, but you hear these incredible, transformations, these life transformations, complete 180s of people's lives. And, dawned on me like more people can probably benefit to hear this because I knew early on when I was struggling, my girlfriend at the time, who is my wife now, I kind of love to say that, she gave me a book that was called Courage to Change. And in the
Mm-hmm.
book, there was a bunch of essays of like celebrities. I remember Pete Townsend from The Who and some, I think some CEOs were in there and they were sober. And I remember this book helped me. I'm like, wow, look at these people that, lack of a better word, to kind of look up to, or at least are very successful in life and they're successful without drinking. It really
Mm-hmm.
helped me. So I think that's part of the premise too. If more people can hear the message, then maybe they don't have to go find that worst bottom of their life, and they can stop it a little earlier.
Yeah, maybe. Of course, we don't know our journey sometimes is to hit rock bottom and
That's
then
true.
to
Sometimes we have
skyrocket
to.
up, right?
Absolutely. No,
Yeah.
no argument there.
Yeah. So just out of curiosity, when did you start drinking? How young were you?
Oh, I started probably, I don't know, 11, 12, like normal stuff, sneaking parents' liquor cabinet stuff with my buddies. Then started to go out a little younger than you're supposed to. I wasn't, all my buddies are all my best friends. They're still my best friends to this day. They're all like a little bit older than me. So at that age, they're like a year and a half older than me. It's a kind of a big difference, but they were allowed to go out and I was like sneaking out but, I think I started normally and then, get to high school, I started, really getting after it. But I think like a lot of people, but even early on, I was just a little bit different. And then as I got a little older, it was clear that I was, and I say that, my group, there's a few of my buddies out of my core group that are sober today.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a few of us, we were not angels at all. Like we all kind of heavy hitters.
Yeah.
But I had an abnormal obsession to drink for sure, and that's been lifted in finding a higher power and finding some
Mm-hmm.
spirituality in my life.
Beautiful. So, do you come from a family of alcoholics?
Well, there's only two. There's I'm the oldest of two. But my mom is one of 10. My mom's not a drinker, but there's some heavy generational drinking on my mom's side of the family, like
Mm-hmm.
grandparents, my great grandparents, some aunts, some uncles. I'm the first one, although my grandfather, I never saw him drink. I just heard, stories of him. He had to stop drinking, apparently. And so, alcoholism, to be honest, is kind of littered, on my mom's side of the family, but I say that they're the most wonderful people in the whole world. And, I'm the first grandchild on my mom's side too, out of this huge Irish family that I'm super proud of. But I'm the first one that I know of that actually went away, went to rehab, went to AA, and now you get these little gifts, and then some of the gifts are sometimes you have family members or friends reach out to you.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, you've been through this. You think you can help, my son or help this person or help myself. And, I wasn't getting those phone calls, Vicky, 18 years ago, and I'm getting them today. And
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
truly grateful for it.
Yeah. So what was like you said you were like 11 or 12 when you started drinking, and I'll be honest, I remember when I was in high school. Um, and my parents came home, and for whatever reason, my parents drank, but they weren't alcoholics. They didn't drink a lot, but they had some liquor and stuff in the house. And so for whatever reason, one day I just decided that I was going to drink some. So I drank it, and it hit me really quick, and I was drunk
Mm,
real fast. So I went to bed. And so when my parents got home, and my mom would be mortified if she knew I was sharing this. But when my parents got home, um, my dad went to check on me, or my mom went to check on me, and I said I just didn't feel good and everything. And so, um, she goes in the kitchen and she said she's not feeling good. Well, we'll just leave her alone. Let's just go ahead and fix dinner. So my dad came to check in on me, and he sat on the side of the bed and he patted my arm and everything. And then I heard him when he left the room. He said, "She is not sick. She is drunk."
wow.
And at the time, And my sister will be mortified if as I share this too. At the time, my sister was young. She was like 15, and she was pregnant,
Oh,
and 15 or 16. And so she had moved in with her boyfriend. And so my dad's whole thing was, he said, "Oh my gosh," he said, "we got one kid laying in here drunk and the other one across town shacked up." And he was pissed, pissed, you know?
of
And
course.
so I was so hungover the next day and so sick that my dad would pick at me and ridicule me, and he said, "But just go ahead and go in there and throw up. Just get used to it." And he'd say all
Yeah,
this stuff. And it was like, I was like, "Oh, I never want to do this again." But
right.
that is not how it happened either, because I did it again and I did it again, just as a social thing after a
Right.
while. I was never one of those people, other than that one time that I just drank at home.
Right.
Um, but I will say that the thing that always amazed me was, it's like, I don't like that feeling of being out of control.
Mm,
And that's what you get. And there's a tipping point to me. It's a fine line between, yes, this feels good, and the next one is like, holy shit.
right.
I don't feel like I'm in control of anything.
Yeah.
And I don't like that. And I think that's the main reason that I never really kept drinking like some of the people I knew,
Mhm.
because I'm too much of a control freak, I guess. And so maybe that's a good thing. At least for that, it is.
Yeah, maybe that could be
Yeah.
there. Sure.
But do you remember, like, when you were like in high school, and you said, you just kind of skirted over a little bit. You said that, you were out with your buddies and you were doing all these different things. So, um, do you remember the times when you were out and you got really, really drunk, or is that one of those things that it was like, you just don't remember?
It just became every weekend, and then, like my like senior year, I was I'll say this, like when I was younger, like grade school, I was one of the highest, one of the smartest kids as far as grades in the entire grade, right? And by the time I was getting to high school, I was barely graduating because I stopped basically going to school. And I
Stopped
bring this,
caring, right?
yeah, oh yeah, 100%, and kind of rebelling, kind of not caring, and um, just really sabotaging my own life, even though I didn't know at the time. But yeah, I mean, there was plenty of times, but like as you were describing, how you drank and like, oh, I never want to feel that way again. Like me, for this person, again, I was an alcoholic. Like I would do all that, and I'd feel like crap, but I'd go right back at it like right away. Like
Yeah.
that's the difference. And
That's
then,
the old thing, the hair of the dog. Isn't that what they
oh
say?
yeah, yeah, jump back on, yeah, oh, jump
Yeah.
back on the horse that kicked you off, and so yeah, right there, the dog. But yeah, I mean, I also got in a lot of trouble. I started getting at an early age, like I tell this story a lot. I was 16 years old. I was a junior in high school. I was the captain of my baseball team. It was the night before Thanksgiving. It's a big night in my town. I was with some older cousins all day. We were just, we were in the batting cages and stuff, and I was in the backseat drinking beers or whatever, and they were talking about going to the bar, and it's like the biggest night in the whole town, and the whole town's gonna be there. And here I am, just a kid in high school. And I'm like, I'm gonna go to that bar tonight. And I did, and a fight broke out, and I was having the time of my life inside the bar because like I was the youngest kid in there. Everyone knew me. It's a small town, everyone knows each other. A fight broke out, and I wake up Thanksgiving morning with first degree assault of a police officer, broke cop's nose, went to arrest my cousin. I went after him. And so I got into, like, I went from like, this kind of, maybe normal drinker to like all of a sudden, like really bad trouble, like big time trouble. And everyone in my town started looking at me just a little bit differently. Like
Mm.
I come from, a blue collar area, some tough guys for sure. But they started giving, kind of like, lack of a better word, like respect me. Like, hey, I heard what happened. Come, come hang out with us. And all good guys, but their
So it
ref,
almost became a badge of honor kind of thing.
I don't know about a badge of honor, but it was kind of looked that way. Yeah, it was just like, oh, look,
Yeah.
he's the one that did that to him. And so it was definitely a label on me for forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to keep going with it. So I was in court with that for a long time, and it was the first time I was ever in trouble, and we were able to kind of like get it sealed. And all I had to do was not, I certainly wasn't allowed in the bar. I was still young. I was 17 when it was over. When the case was all done and everything. And only that wasn't, I couldn't go near a bar. I was 21 years old, was a drinking age. And the day that case was over, I went to the bar. And like, I just, again, just, they say it's cunning, baffling, and powerful like that. With that, it had its grip on me, and that it made no sense to the lay person, to a normal person, but people that are sick with the disease like I had, like they totally understand it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I had a brother-in-law that was an alcoholic, and I never knew him before he was an alcoholic. And my husband used to tell me all the time, he said, I wish you could have met him before because he's not the same person now.
Yeah.
And, and he was one of those people that if I walked up and he spoke to me and was friendly, I knew he was just starting to drink because
Mhm.
otherwise he was antisocial. He really wouldn't talk to you.
Right.
And when he first started drinking, he was friendlier and he would talk to you. And then when he
Sure.
got a little bit too far, he was paranoid and would be mean, you
Yeah.
know. And so it was a very heart-wrenching thing to watch the
Right.
stuff that this man was going through. And my husband was always talking about, I wish you could have known him before. I wish you could have known him before.
Yeah. I'm glad you said that, because as you were saying that, I'm thinking about the flip side of that, because like I said, yesterday I was 18 years sober, and, I have some nieces, right? And they all hear these. I mean, I have some outrageous, ridiculous stories, right? And
Yeah.
some are hilarious, some used to be funny and really aren't funny in
Yeah.
hindsight. Some are
Yeah.
a lot of trouble, just
Yeah.
craziness. And my nieces sometimes they would say like I can't even picture you like with some of these stories. Like I don't even get it because they've never seen me that way.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the flip side
Yeah.
of
And that feels
your
kind of beautiful, doesn't it?
oh, it feels great. It feels
Yeah.
amazing,
Yeah.
I have two children here, and God willing, they've never seen their dad drunk, and
Yeah.
that's a real gift too,
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
especially with my
since I had an uncle that was an alcoholic, and then my husband's brother and his father were alcoholics. I never met his father. He had already passed away. And so I've always told my daughter, be very, very careful about the drinking thing because I don't really understand it so much. But the thing that I've heard is that if you come from a family of alcoholics, that sometimes the difference between being an alcoholic and not being an alcoholic can be one drink. It could be taking that third drink or that fourth drink and doing it again the next day, and then suddenly you've set this pattern that's you're more likely to live out because of the alcoholics in the family. Do you find that
I've
scientifically, is that accurate?
I've absolutely seen it. I have
Okay.
seen, whether I think I struggle, or I kind of, I'm not in one strong camp one way or the other. Like I think if some people looked at me and like my DNA, if you will, they'd say, well, you're susceptible to it. And there's probably truth to that. But again, I
Hmm.
have a lot of family that maybe they maybe they're alcoholics. Actually, some of them are for sure, but they also didn't get in the trouble that I got in. So,
Yeah.
all
Well,
the stuff that I did, I did. It wasn't like,
yeah.
hey,
But
did you
there
know?
are people like my husband's father who passed away before I ever met him, but he was a functioning alcoholic to where he would be so wasted at night or so wasted on the weekends that my husband would tell me sometimes that he always knew that his dad said something and he knew he was drunk and he wanted to stay away. But he worked at Lockheed all day, 5 days a week, and was very functioning, never had a problem at all. But it was when he got home that all of it would happen.
See, I would push back on that actually,
Yeah.
just because I would push back on the functioning alcoholic. And again, that's something that I think come to realize in sobriety. Like a functioning I could have been an alcoholic too and never gotten arrested, and made never missed work, and just been, for lack of better, just a miserable person. But if my kids are nervous to be around me at sometimes, that's a problem. That's a
Yeah.
big problem.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Well, to me, a functioning alcoholic is the ones that can be an alcoholic at home, but be in public without anybody noticing, knowing that that's what it is. To me, that's functioning just because they're not drunk
Functioning
during the
because,
day when they're supposed to be at work.
well, functioning like because they didn't miss work and maybe they didn't,
Yeah.
crash
Yeah.
the car and they didn't get arrested and they didn't, lose their family. But I don't know, ask those family members, would they
Yeah.
rather see this functioning alcoholic not drink and see how life would be for them?
Yeah. 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 Well, they never really knew him any other way, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's got many
He,
faces. Alcoholism's
yeah.
got many, many, many faces.
It does, it does. And when I was in high school, there was a there was a I was a senior and there was a girl that was a junior and she was in class with me in a lot of my classes. And you could always smell alcohol on her.
Mm.
And she and some of her friends would laugh and have these big comedy almost, I don't know what to say, but they would just laugh. And it was like it was funny that she was so drunk. And they would even share her notes because, like, she would take notes in class like she was okay, but you could not read a word of it because it was just gibberish because she was too drunk to write.
That's
But she would sit in class. She would, just take notes and keep her head down, and then it was all a big joke later. And I used to think, oh my gosh, I cannot believe that they feel like that's so funny. I was mortified.
Yeah, it's really sad. That's a sad story. Like you
Hmm.
understand too, you're in high school, so kids are gonna laugh at that stuff. But I mean, that's really sad. I wonder where that girl is today. I
I
wonder how.
don't know. I just remember her first name. Her name was Cindy, but I don't remember
Yeah.
her last name. Anything like that. I have no idea. I should go get my yearbook and see if I can
I
find
say
her
that might be
somewhere.
an interesting
She might
little
be the president
project
of a
for her.
company by now. Who knows?
Maybe she's sober. You never know.
Maybe, maybe, maybe after that year, she never drank again. Who
Yeah,
knows?
yeah. I hope so. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be amazing. So
Good.
tell us, um, you said that you've got all these stories that your nieces and all are always amazed that those were you. Do you want to share a story of something, either like something that was your bottom or something that was, you know what I mean? Kind of give
Yeah,
people
yeah.
kind of an
Well,
idea of, I mean, you can get pretty.
yeah, there's bottoms, there's crazy, there's some funny ones. I haven't told some funny ones in a while,
Oh,
but
well, then tell us a
I'll
funny
tell
one.
you.
We want to be different here.
Yeah, I gotta think of one off the bat. Just absurd though. I mean, really, really absurd. But I'm thinking, you mentioned bottom. So like I said, I was a good student early on, and by the time I barely graduated high school. I did graduate high school. I enrolled in a couple of community colleges. A few years after that, I kind of went on a tear and drove down to Key West with a buddy. We moved to Key West for a year and, kind of just living this party lifestyle. We came back to New York. I found the perfect career for me, which was bartending. I was going to be I was in a bartend in Montauk in the
Yeah.
summer, Long Island. I was going to go down to Key West in the winters and I was going to be this just professional partier, and that's where I was going. And someone came in the bar and said, "Hey, what are you doing behind the bar? You need to come to work for me." And he worked on Wall Street. And long story short, I took him up on it. I went and took the test. I passed my test. I went to this sort of like Jordan Belfort type, Wolf of Wall Street firm. I didn't know what was going on, but I got licensed. And so I took the license and I got a real job. I got my foot in the door in one of the biggest banks, on Wall Street, Solomon Smith Barney, which is now Citigroup, Citibank. And so I started there 2000, February of 2001, and it's 6.5 or so blocks north of the World Trade Center. We know what happens in September. I'm
Yeah.
on the block, and after September 11th, I really go dark. Like I really go into a dark place. Like I used to always like thought I'm going to bring a family and have a family one day. I was like, I don't want to bring kids into this world. I was really in a dark place, and I was
Mm.
out and so. But this is also my first real job, right? It's my first like I have I'm working Monday through Friday. I have my weekends off. I have benefits. I have a salary. Like I have all these things that I think normal young adults are striving to get, and I'm there, and I can't hold on to it, and I go AWOL from this job. And so I go out on a Thursday night with a bunch of guys from work. Now, granted, also part of this is I never feel good enough. I'm surrounded by Ivy Leaguers and
Mm-hmm.
cream of the crop. Everyone's from money, and I'm not. I'm not enough. I don't have enough money. I'm not good enough. I got a chip on my shoulder already. And so anyway, I go out on a Thursday night with these guys. Like I said, I'm always kind of feeling uncomfortable in my own skin with them, and I kind of just do what I always do. Irish exit. I just leave, go do my own thing. I don't show up Friday. Total AWOL. I keep going Friday, going this long bender. And when Monday comes around, I'm still at it. I'm still going at it. I don't show up to work. Tuesday comes, I get, a knock on my door and it's a FedEx envelope. And I open it, and it says, if you're alive, you need to contact us. Otherwise, your position's terminated. So I called, I kind of thought quickly on my feet and I called them up and I said, I'm alive. And I said, I have a problem with alcoholism and I need to go get help. Like it was planted in my head somewhere. I don't know if someone said it or I heard it somewhere, and I'm just being honest, I'm not proud of this, but I heard like if you're going to rehab, they can't fire you right then.
Yeah.
So I was like, it was like a little lifeline. I don't know how I got it, but I did it. And I went up to this amazing place upstate New York. It's called St. Christopher's. It's called the Miracle on the Mountain. And I went up there for 30 days and, I just sat there and I smoked a couple of packs of cigarettes every day, but it's the first AA meeting that I ever went to. It's the first time I was sitting at a circle and it came around to me and I had to say it. I said, I'm Gary and I'm an alcoholic. And I can remember as clear as day that moment right now as I share that with you. So, but we talked about our journeys and our paths, and my journey wasn't ready. And after 30 days, I went back out, and that was when I was talking to him earlier on. I was in and out for 4 years, and so that's one of the, I guess, the stories. That's kind of a bottom story. When I was sitting in my apartment that I mentioned earlier, though, I was just sitting all alone, May 12th, drunk as a skunk, all alone in my apartment where I used to love to be. It came to a point where I loved to be alone, loved to isolate. Like I
Mm-hmm.
normally loved it. And I was sitting alone and I was like, can't do this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. And I really believe, no, I was given this gift of surrender and I gave up. And in giving up the one thing, I've gained everything back. Although
Yeah.
I didn't know it at the time. And that started my journey in sobriety. I say a lot too, Vickie, that, I was an adult in stature in 2002 or 2006 when I, came in, but inside I was just a scared little boy and I didn't realize it. I thought I wasn't scared of anything. In fact, if you saw me out, you'd be like, wow, that guy's not afraid of anything. But the truth was, when I started doing the work on myself and doing some self-discovery, which I'm still on that journey today,
Mm-hmm.
I realized I was afraid of everything.
Yeah. Well, you've been doing some self-discovery, and I'll be honest, there is not a soul out here now that is not living their little child, problems
Yeah.
in their adult life. I like to say that we look at the world through the lens of what we've dealt with when we were young, and we're
Sure.
still there.
Mhm.
There's I have a picture of myself in my bedroom. It's a pretty big picture of when I was 5 years old, and I talk to her a lot of times. And one of the things that I tell her all the time, and I've done many videos about it, is that everything's going to be all right, because there's
Yeah.
so many times in our life that we don't want anybody to fix it. We don't want them to tell us what to do. We don't want anything but just say, you know, it's going to be all right.
Yeah.
And so that's what I tell myself. And I do visuals where I go back and tell my little 5-year-old self, and I give her a hug, and tell her, no matter what you're dealing with now and you're going to be dealing in the future, I'm telling you, you're going to be all right. And that's the most important thing to me.
Vicky, that's so powerful to me, because one thing on my podcast, I do very similar to you. I have a conversation. I don't have any kind of questions, but one of the questions I do get around to asking is if you bumped into yourself, to your younger self, or, for me, like if you bumped into 16-year-old Gary before you're about to go in the bar and getting all in trouble, like what would you tell him? But what you're saying to me is, I feel like going to my mom and dad's house and finding a picture of me as a kid to hold it nearby, and I can
Hmm.
just picture myself telling him, "Hey, you're doing okay, pal. Like you're doing okay."
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love to say it's going to be okay. Like I think that would really, in fact, I'm going to do that So
Yeah,
you
you
just told me
should. I
I
mean,
think I'm
it
gonna
is so amazingly powerful to do.
to see like how far we've come, right? And see
Yeah. Yeah.
where you were. And yes, I have to be like when I'm 10 years old when things started going haywire and seeing things that I shouldn't have saw. And but yeah, to be like, you know what, you're doing okay. Doing
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
I love
You're going
that.
to grow up to be an amazing person. So just get ready, right?
I don't know about that. I don't know about that yet.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I can tell already.
That's sweet. Thank you. But yes, no, I think I'm going to do that for sure. I'm going to go get a picture of myself because I don't have a picture, a little picture of myself.
Yeah. Oh, mine's not a little, mine's a big old
Yeah,
picture.
no, I like it. I would look at it
Yeah.
every day and be like, hey, it's
Yeah. Yeah.
okay. I think that would help.
Yeah, I have it on the wall in my bedroom. And I'll be honest, I had a friend over this past Thanksgiving, and it was the first time she'd been to my house, and I hadn't hung it yet. It was behind the door,
Right.
and it was just sitting on the floor, because I hadn't decided where I was going to put it. And I was talking to her, and I told her, I said, I've got this picture, and I go and I talk to her all the time and everything. And she said, well, where's it at? I want to see. And we go in the bedroom, and I open the go to close the door, and I said, she's right here. And she said, oh, nobody puts Vickie behind the door. You
That's
got to
right.
hang that.
You're
So
right.
right then I went and got a nail and I hung it up. I said, okay, you're right. She should not be hiding behind the
Not
door.
be
She
hidden
should be
behind.
right there in
Yeah.
front. So she
There
is
you
on the wall, and I speak to her often.
I love it.
Yeah.
First time I heard it, I love it. I'm gonna do similar. Mine's
Yeah.
smaller. I got a little picture right in the corner.
All right. Beautiful, beautiful. It's amazing. I will tell you. It feels really good as you're doing that, and each time you do it feels a little bit better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna share that with my friends actually, because yeah, we deal with all the, the fears and fear of financial insecurity and all these, and I used to think it was just in our, recovery, space, but I was at a conference about a month ago, a big conference, big businesses and super successful people. And one of the takeaways is everyone's so afraid that it's all going to be taken away from them the next day. So I came back. I said, it's not just us. Like everyone has these fears, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm gonna share find a picture of yourself and keep it close and tell them when you're feeling those fears, look at them and say, you know what, you're doing just fine, pal. Like keep
Yeah.
going. It's gonna be okay.
Yeah, yeah, beautiful. Well, I'm so glad I could help in some
You
way.
really did. You really
Yeah,
did.
yeah, beautiful. Well, I shared with you that I'm not an alcoholic, never been, not a drug addict, but I've been a food addict my whole
Mm.
life.
Okay.
So, I have a different kind of addiction
Sure.
that is one of those that, and I know it's not the same at all, but with alcohol, at least you can just stop drinking, right? May not be easy, but you stop, right? Food, you have to figure out how you still
That's
eat it
right.
every
Yeah.
damn day. So it's like saying, okay, you're an alcoholic, you can take three little shots and then that's it. You can't have any more. And it's like, and so that is something that I've been working on for quite a long time. And that's why I got into health coaching, life coaching, transformational coaching, and hypnotism, is because of what I had been going through, trying to figure out how to either make peace with being fat or deciding that there's something I can do and I'll stick with it. And
Yes.
so, I can understand. I know it's not the same, but I can understand how that is, because it can be like, you can know deep in your heart that eating that bag of Oreos is going to be detrimental to your health, right?
You know,
And still sit down to the damn Oreos.
I'll eat the Oreos. Listen, I get that. I do.
Yeah.
I had a widowmaker heart attack 4 years ago, and
Oh, okay.
total. It was a fluke. Or another family history on my mom's side. A lot of heart attacks, heart disease on my mom's side. But me too. Like I went through a time where I was eating better, eating tons, eating too much ice cream. Like Gary, you had a heart attack, but now there's one caveat was I didn't have like, high cholesterol. Mine was just, it was a widowmaker. It was a piece of plaque fell off my main artery and it clogged. But, you know, yeah, fine. It doesn't matter what's worse, alcoholism, food. Like, listen, it doesn't matter. You know what, though? You're sharing your path and your journey and your story and you're helping other people with it,
Yeah.
and I'm sure, I'm certain that a lot of the things that alcoholics or I've dealt with, self-esteem or shame, like I am certain that if those are topics that come up, in your groups with
Oh yeah.
for
Yeah.
for
Not
sure.
feeling good enough.
Yeah, not feeling good enough. And my
Yeah.
buddy says all roads lead to I suck, and sometimes I'm, oh, I know what he means by that. Yeah,
That's too funny. All right, so we're getting close to time because I know you and I both have a hard stop, and I'm sure I don't know if you're like me. I gotta go get my refresh my tea and go to the restroom before I get on the next podcast,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So what is one thing that you would like to share with the listeners today? Um, and before you say that, I want to share with everybody that's watching or listening, because this is visual in certain platforms.
Mhm.
But I want to share that I'm going to have the description of who you are and everything in the description for the podcast. And then I'll have all the links to that you shared with me in the questionnaire that I gave you. I'll have all the links of how to get in contact with you. So please leave a comment, leave a question. And then check out, some of the links that he has and reach out because, like you said, the podcast is amazing. And I haven't listened, but I'm definitely going to go and listen, and I will like, subscribe, and share. And
Appreciate that. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, and the thing too is that there's more than just the podcast.
yeah,
So, reach out, and even if you're not someone who is struggling with alcoholism, but if you know someone who is,
yeah.
because it's important to have the support system around you too, right?
Absolutely. The saying, 6 degrees of separation, like alcoholism addictions, like 0.1 degree of separation. Like everyone has someone close to them for sure. And yeah, I appreciate so much you mentioning all the links and yes, there's something I want to say. Please, you can hit me on DM, Instagram. I happen to be on Instagram a lot, Facebook. I'm mainly on Instagram is where I do a lot of my interacting. I have a website though. You can shoot me an email through the website. I would love to hear from you for sure. And the one thing to leave your listeners, yes, we'll stay with the theme of alcoholism. We can't switch it up now, right? Is
Hey,
you're
we
not
can do
alone.
whatever the hell we want to do.
Yeah,
So
that's right. This is your show. We can do whatever we want. I love that. Yeah. What I would say is, listen, you know, I see it every single day. I see miracles every single day. You don't have to live the way you're living if you don't want to. If you have a problem with drinking or drugs, there is an amazing, beautiful life beyond your wildest dreams on the other side of this if you go and seek help. The bravest thing I've learned, the bravest thing that you can do is to reach out for help if you need help.
yeah,
I was born and raised there. You didn't say a word to anyone. You kept it all inside, and that couldn't be further from the truth. And
right.
you reach out, you reach out for help. You ask someone for help. And if you don't know me, so I could be the first one if you like, but there's a beautiful life for you. And you don't have to live in that disease anymore.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And I will just go ahead and leave everybody with one of my favorite quotes, besides my Yoda quote that's on my email,
Love
that
it.
one,
Yes.
but it's the best way to predict the future is create it. So what are you creating?
What am I creating? I want to create a platform for people in recovery where they can come and share their stories, where they can inspire others. I'm working on a platform of entrepreneurs. I want to build a platform where I'm really into business and entrepreneurship. I love online business. I want to build a platform where so almost build our own niche of entrepreneurs and business brands in recovery where we could support each other and we can go out and share that with everyone. And I think I've heard this, and I don't know if this is going to come up the wrong way, but some of the most incredible people that I've ever met are people in recovery. And it
Hmm.
was I've always thought this, but I didn't quite articulate it until someone gave me the permission to by voicing it and saying, "Well, of course they are the most amazing people because they've been through it all and they've come back, kind of like a group of phoenixes rising from the ashes." To be honest with you, a lot of us have been to the brink. A lot of us have been in the brink. We've been behind bars. We've been in jails, institutions, and we've transformed our lives. So I want to celebrate that. I think that needs to be celebrated. And yeah, so that's I have all these crazy ideas and creative built around the podcast or the website. I think the podcast is just going to be a subset of it all.
Yeah.
If I execute on it. So yes, I do have a lot of big dreams and creative dreams with that.
Oh, that sounds beautiful. I love it. I love it. And the one of the reasons why people in recovery are so great is because they're some of the people that are on this self-exploration journey,
Yeah.
And I love having conversations with people that are growing and becoming something. And that's why the whole thing of my podcast is people telling amazing stories. And
Yeah.
some of them are, you know, pretty detrimental, and people still come out on the other side. And so, like, the way I look at it is there's no excuse on earth to have a miserable life because you can make a decision to change it. And that's what's beautiful about recovery. And that's what's beautiful about people that are striving to be who they want to be is that you get to choose.
I love that. I mean, I love everything you just said. I'm going to turn 50 in a few weeks. July, I turned 50 early July, and I'm pounding the table that my next 50 years, if I make it 50, my next 25, 30 years, going to be the best years of my life.
50. Just go ahead and say 50.
I'll
You'll
say,
make it.
and I have to get my head around that one. But no, I mean, the best is yet to come, and
Yeah.
all because you
You
know
made
I,
a decision.
I made a decision,
Yeah.
100%, absolutely.
Yes. Well, I'm glad you made that decision too. And I'm glad you made the decision to come onto my podcast because I'm super excited and happy to have had you here.
Well, I'm super grateful that you invited me on. I'm glad that we got introduced together. I really enjoyed this. I think your mission, all that you're doing, I think it's really, really beautiful and it comes through. So thank you so much for having me on.
Well, thank you. So we'll see you later, everybody. Mwah.
Mwah.